Hey, this is Øystein from Borknagar. You are watching RichardMetalFan.
So what's up, guys? Episode 64 of RichardMetalFan interviews here at the Master in Atlanta, Georgia, and I get a returning guest. I got Øystein from the almighty Borknagar. How are you doing, man?
Hey ho, I'm doing very good actually. I have a blast of a tour and it's running smoothly, so can't complain.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you again. I know we did like a Zoom interview like back last September and October, and we get to do one in person.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, so basically this format is I want to do a quick rundown of your catalog as well as your musical journey from where you started to now. But I'm also curious, before we go into that, what were the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to start playing guitar?
Oh, dude, that's a long time ago. To be quite honest, I don't exactly remember, but I remember I was very fascinated by some very early Accept German thrash metal band. There was like, I remember one of my friends at that time had a big sister that had a cassette of Accept. I think it was Metal Heart. And I just...
Classic.
I remember that song and that solo, that mid part with the solo and everything, like a little bit of Beethoven flavor to it, the classic vibe to it. I remember it just exploded in my head, and from there it's like, yeah, gone on. Yeah, right. That's it, basically.
All right, and what were your bands before starting up Borknagar?
Well, I did the classic story about friends meeting on high school and stuff. I was like 14, 15 years old, I guess, and we started to play around in the garage of my parents, and the very first band we started was called Purgation, and after a couple of months, that wasn't brutal enough, wasn't evil enough, so we changed down to Molested, which was like probably way too evil. But we started out as a brutal death metal kind of band. At that time, I was totally into this undergroundish, not necessarily undergroundish, but the more obscure parts of the death metal scene, like Incantation, Miasma from Austria, I think it was, and Dissect from Finland and stuff like that. Really lo-fi, growling kind of death metal, and that was where I kind of started as my music career in a sense. Yeah.
All right, and how did Borknagar form? Because I believe you all formed in '93, I believe.
Well, I was still in a death metal band, and we had a quite strict rehearsal schedule. We rehearsed every second day, no matter what. I remember, and at some point, we grew older, and some of the guys had to go to military service. Some of the guys wanted to do some education in a different city and stuff like that. So things, of natural reasons, started to dissolve. And parallel to this, I started to work with ideas about my own musical venture. And I've always been very fascinated by my mothership in terms of music has been Pink Floyd. And atmospheric music. My musical upbringing was very much into this prog rock from the 70s and stuff. So I wanted to do something more melodic. I just had this urge to do something more melodic, airy kind of music. And I had a very early idea about I wanted to make my own musical universe in a sense.
Yeah, and then going to your first album, the self-titled album. I know we kind of talked about it in the last interview, but what was that whole experience like?
It was golden experience. It was golden experience in so many ways, but it was I think back then we kind of just improvised in a sense. Me and Grim, the late drummer of the band, started to rehearse in a dirty cellar somewhere in Bergen and make some riffs and put together some songs and then we was ambitious at that time. We even before we had a vocalist, even before we had finished the songs, we booked some time in the Grieghallen studios and just had that as a kind of goal, and worked like crazy, just jumping into the whole thing. We, as I said, we didn't have any vocalists when entering the studio, so we just rolled on and in hopes to see what's happening around the corner kind of thing. But my musical vision at that point was really clear. I wanted to make this blend my own musical universe in a sense, but of course based on my influences like the black metal scene, the black metal roots, but also combine that with my my kind of musical upbringing from Pink Floyd, Steppenwolf, and all that old school rock music. So it was ambitious. It was. I had a clear vision in the early days. I wanted to breach some boundaries. I wanted to do something new, but still within the framework of the black metal scene.
Yeah, and I totally agree, because you guys really stand out from all the black metal with like the corpse paint and the church burning and shit. But I think you guys are kind of like a rebel against that. I mean, black metal is like a rebellion, but I think you kind of rebel against it in a way.
You know, because at some point in the late 90s, I have to admit, and this is not, you know, I'm not pointing fingers towards anyone, but everybody was talking about individualism, being your own boss, being, you know, powerful and all that stuff kind of thing. But what I saw really was a bunch of sheeps doing the exact same thing, exact same clothes, exact same black dyed hair and all that stuff. And that's something you know, since I was a kid, as far as I can remember, I've always kind of resisted being a part of any group. I always had this sense of being, having this freedom of mind, freedom of person, freedom of everything. I just want to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it, kind of thing. And I kind of cherish that value. And that kind of, in my world, that just forced me into you know, having some sort of rebellion against the very kind of generic black metal scene at that time, in my opinion.
All right, and then going to the next album, the Olden Domain, like a lot of people say, when you write your first album, you have your whole life. But with the Olden Domain, did you felt like pressure to follow up the self-titled?
You know, not really from the outside. Really, I've somehow I've always been very kind of. I don't care about the outside, to be honest, because I have to protect my musical integrity. So I don't care when I write music. I really, honestly, don't care what record company says, fans says, whatever. I just do what I feel is the right thing to do at that point. And that's what we did also with the Olden Domain. But of course we felt that. I remember we was in studio in Germany, and you know, we did quite a lot of things at that point that was unheard of in the mid 90s black metal scene. I mean, we introduced Hammond organ, we introduced the progressive element, we used clean vocals, choirs, in the refrains and stuff like that. And you know, back then bands didn't really do that, and it was kind of unheard of that a Norwegian black metal band, so-called, did that. And I felt a little bit, okay, we are doing something now that is either it's gonna, you know, success, or it's gonna fail.
Yeah, and it's a success, and it's a success in my books, man. Man, because you definitely try to stand out and definitely progress with each album.
Yeah. Push the boundaries.
Yeah, and then the next album, the Archaic Course, I love that, and that was also the first album with ICS Vortex. How'd you end up hooking up with him?
That was more or less a coincidence, or maybe it wasn't really. You know, it's, you know, back then everybody knew everybody, and I remember, you know, the reason why Garm quit was basically because he was fed up with metal in general at that point.
Oh wow!
So his departure from the band was planned. I mean, I remember when it was in Germany. We was at the hotel, and you know, this is it, and we do this album and finish this album, but that's it, kind of thing. And completely cool. What can I say? Decision. Still good friends, always been good friends and all that. But then he kind of mentioned that, yeah, I know one guy in Oslo that's hang around on Elm Street, like a local pub back then, and he might be interested. He has a really good voice and all that stuff. So, yeah, we kind of. Got some contact with this guy, and then you know, that's Vortex, and yeah, I think we invited him to Bergen. We flew him over to Bergen, and just to hang around a little bit and to, you know, drink and have a good time together and talk and work on music and stuff. And I think he actually crashed on our rehearsal room in Bergen at that time. I had a 4-track Porta studio thing in this rehearsal room. And I remember he crashed there, just sleeping over that night. And when coming back in the morning, he has all of a sudden recorded a lot of vocals on some rehearsals stuff we have done earlier on that day. And it was just amazing. And I kind of knew that from that point, you know, this is it. Let's move on. And then we did Archaic Course, and yeah.
Yeah, and then I noticed with the first 3 albums, like, they were just released year after year after year. But I noticed with the next album, Quintessence, did you like sort of take your time making that album?
I don't remember, but I guess it was a kind of, back then it was everlasting flow. The circle just, continued. We did the Archaic Course, got back home. I guess we did some touring, some live and stuff like that. And then we straight back to new album making and stuff. And we had some changes with the drummer at that point. We got Oscar Mikkelsen doing drums, and that also marks the album where Nederland got involved in the band.
Yeah.
So a lot of things changed at that, and we also did the album in a different studio, in Abbe's studio with Peter Takren from
Hypocrisy
and
Great
Pain
frontman.
and all that stuff. Yeah. So on that album we wanted to do something slightly different again. We wanted actually we wanted to get a little bit more back to the metal bone, in a sense, have a more metal production, and so we did.
Yeah, and then next album, Empiricism. I like that. What was that like, going from Quintessence to Empiricism?
Oh, I don't remember, but that was also introduced, Wintersog into the band, because after Quintessence, Simon left to play with Dimmy Borgir guys, and they was, busy touring and all that stuff. So that wasn't really, he wasn't able to be in both bands at that time. So Wintersog came into the band, and that kind of introduced also a little bit of different era, in a sense, because to my surprise, actually, I met Wintersog a few years before Empiricism, and we started actually to talk about a completely different project together. But we felt a very kind of brotherhood in terms of writing and making music. So that was a little bit different in terms of the pre-production of the album, writing music, and all of a sudden I kind of had a fellow mate in the band that we wrote music together, or kind of inspired each other, in a sense. So that was a different adventure, in a sense, but very cool though.
All right, and then the next album, Epic, I thought it was pretty interesting because your bass player on your drummer on this album actually played bass on that album. Like, how did he end up playing bass?
Yeah, that was a kind of emergency situation, I think, because the bass player, back then getting members wasn't the easiest thing, and of course we had some standards of qualities that abilities that they needed. So we started working on Epic, and we was a little bit at that point. That was, at least for me, that was a bit weird period in my life. I got my first kid then, and bought myself my first house and stuff like that. So I have to admit, in all honesty, that I wasn't 100% focused on music, to be honest. We were working more on routine, and we kind of just did what we did, and at the end of the day, when we were supposed to wrap up the album and finish the album, we didn't have a bass player. So Oscar, he had a bass, he had a studio and a possibility to record, and so he did.
And then Origen, I love that album. It's also your first acoustic album. What made you guys decide we should just go full acoustic with this one?
The album before Epic, that was an all balls out, tits out, everything out. Yeah. Philosophical, very complicated album. It's overproduced in many ways. It was so high flying in many regards, I would say, the album Epic. Maybe too much at some point. With Origen, I got this instant urge that I wanted to bring everything down to Earth again. Down back to planet Earth, back to the Earth, to just cherish the very core of the band. And when I started the band, the first song I ever wrote was an acoustic song. So to me it was a way to just complete the circle, get back down to earth, to make an entirely acoustic album, which is the core influence of the band. I mean, it's metal, yeah, we use distorted guitars and all that, but the core influence in my regards when it comes to Borknagar is the acoustic sound. The acoustic sound of wood, the acoustic sound of guitar. Which reminds me of my old days in the woods, when I kind of picking my knife or axe in the wood and getting this kind of, I don't know, a very organic feel of flavor. So I just wanted to get back to that, to reset the band in a sense, just to get back down to ground and not restart in a sense, but to finish off a musical journey in a sense.
All right, and then Universal Soul is up next. Like, what was that like, going from Origen, which is just straight up acoustic, to Universal, just going back electric again?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the idea. Was then I wanted to go back to my starship in a sense. I just wanted back out in the universe, this broad scope of things. stars, the planet Earth, and all that stuff. So that kind of marked the I don't know, what can I say, a new beginning in a way for the band. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Erd is your next album, and this year is also the 10-year anniversary of that album, and I feel like you guys really progressed from there, of course, with the latest 2 albums, with Thrice and True North. Do you feel like you kind of like evolved since then?
Yeah, I mean for us, I think that the Erd represents somehow, after many years, many tours, many albums, everything came together in almost like a perfect way, in a sense. We find a perfect producer in Jens Bogren, and we just, things, the stars, everything just aligned in a sense. That it to me, Earth is Universal was, the initial restart of the band, or kind of restarting the musical journey, but in the end of the day, I think Earth actually is the one best representing that. And then we did Winter Thrice, and it's has been an awesome journey from that.
Yeah, and I know you're currently on this Kickass Tour right now with Rotting Christ, Abigail Williams, Ghost Bathvale of Noth, and Stormruler. I know, how's this tour been going? I know it's the most typical interview question ever.
It's awesome. I mean, it's just great. I mean, touring for 1 month is heavy, it's rough in many ways, but all over, in general, has been an awesome tour. A lot of people, a lot of the venues have been sold out. I mean, the audience amazing. I met so many people on this tour, that that it's into the music, people that have grown up with our music. So it's an emotional ride. It's it's just awesome. To me, sometimes it's a bit overwhelming in a sense, because I'm a simple country boy from the west coast of Norway. I don't, I'm not kind of used to all this fuss. It's really amazing. I'm humbled. It's great. We have a awesome trip together with Rotting Christ and all the other bands, and it's good. It's a good feel on the tour. Everything is perfect. We had some fuck ups on the border to Canada though, but that was a little bit a downer. But otherwise, it's been an awesome tour.
Yeah, and I know it's been your first tour since 1999. I'm pretty sure everybody's been wondering what took so long and what was the reason for the long wait.
Life, I guess. Life. I don't know, to be honest. We have tried. We have been sniffing out some possibilities before when it comes to touring and stuff. We did the Maryland Death Fest, I think, in 2019 or something like that. Yeah. But touring for a European band, touring in the US, that is really a quantum leap in many ways. It's expensive. You need working visas. You need lawyers to get your CVAs and all the paperwork together, and it's freaking expensive. So we were supposed to do this in 2020, but then the Corona, the COVID pandemic hit us. So
certain virus I refuse to name.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, it has been a long ride, but finally we are here.
Yeah, it was so worth the wait. And kind of like with playing live, is there like a different energy to playing live as to recording on CD, or are they kind of like two separate entities?
Yeah, to me that's two separate entities. I mean, I always, as a musician, my core activity is making albums. I mean, I would probably continue making albums till the end of the days. But live is more like, that's I don't know, that's a different being in my perspective, and but it's awesome as well. But the core activity of what I do, what I actually am, is a music maker, I would say. I always make music for records. I don't consider anything else than the quality of music when writing music. I don't care about the live situation. Maybe this song is too long for a live composers and stuff. I don't care, because the music has to be honest. The music has to be real and come from the heart. Otherwise, it makes no sense to me to do it, really.
Yeah, can't bullshit it.
No, can't.
All right, and then kind of like with your guitar playing, because you have like heavy parts and then some clean parts. Do you ever have to? And I notice you also have like the clean sing and the harsh sing. Do you ever have to like adjust your playing depending on the vocal styles?
Well, it depends. It's symbiosis, I guess, between the vocalists, how we produce the music and stuff. Yeah, definitely. I mean, but that is, what can I say? The beauty of music, in my opinion. I mean, the music is contrasts. I mean, there is no then a note is not specifically interesting, a B note is not specifically interesting, but the tension between the notes, it's interesting. That's the magic of music, in my opinion. So you know, bringing that scope into the picture, to me, that music has to live like, you know, has to be dynamic. There has to be soft parts, there has to be hard parts, there has to be speedy parts, slow parts. That, in my opinion, makes music much more interesting. And also, I would argue, it also mirrors life much better. Sometimes life is depressing, sometimes life is good, sometimes life is busy, sometimes life is tiresome and slow. You know, to me, music should in some way resemble life.
Wow, that's a great thing. So before we go, I just want to thank you for this interview. Is just anything else with Borknagar you'd like to promote in terms of like tours and new music, and hopefully we won't have to wait 20 years for the next US tour?
Hopefully not. Yeah, I would, you know, use the opportunity to thank all the, you know, all the American fans and audience that come to this tour, and hopefully still will continue to come. And this tour has been a blast, and definitely we're going to come back at some point, not in 20 years, maybe. Yeah. In 1-2 years, I don't know.
Yeah, let's hope so.
And in the meantime, there will most likely be a new record coming out as well. Maybe early next year or something.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So everybody, Øystein from Borknagar. We'll see you next time.